Hello everyone, nubkeks here and welcome back to Nub Raids. We're on the test server and today I want to give you my thoughts on the current login champion, right? We're going to be getting her in the actual game in the next few days. Chronicler Adelyn. There's a lot to be said about this one, so let's unpack it, right? And immediately, right at the start, I think that this champion has what I will call the bivaled problem. But I think you have to be careful, right? I think this is similar to what happened with Curse City, you know. Some of us, in the community, some content creators, some commenters, there's no shame in it. Suffer from a problem, a lot of men suffer from premature criticism, and that's okay. It's totally natural. Happens to a lot of people. Premature criticism, is not a problem. We saw that with the Curse City, right? People played the first few days the Curse City, and they said, Curse City is way too easy. This sucks. Of course, I think with hindsight, we can now say that, sure, the first few levels are arguably too easy, but who cares? Overall, the Curse City, I'd say, is too hard, actually. Premature criticism, it's a real problem. I think we've got a similar thing with Adelyn. It's the bivaled problem. We've got two things, premature, and we've got the bivaled problem. What's the bivaled problem? Well, Bivaled of the Thorn, in fact, let's jump over to him. When he came out as Sacred Order, right? Yeah. When he came out as a fusion, we were going, okay, he can land debuffs on weak hits. He's got like all this provoke stuff. What is the point of this guy? What's he for? It wasn't until they reworked Hydra a bit and made the Head of Decay provocable, we said, oh, okay, that's what he's for, and he's pretty decent for it. This is a similar thing that's happening with Adelyn, right? If we jump over to the blurb that Plarium gave it. And this is entirely, by the way, Plarium's fault for doing this. It doesn't make any sense, right? They said, hey, for early and mid-game players, her primary area of expertise is the Sand Devil. This is a Sand Devil champion. However, as we jump down here, after the bosses rebalance, this is the Sand Devil, planned in a few patches ahead, there'll be more tactics and strategies, and you can use more champions, making Chronicler Adelyn even more viable in the long run. But more details are coming closer to the release date. It's the bivaled problem, right? How good is bivaled at the time? It's impossible to say because he was designed for a version of the boss that simply didn't exist. It's the same problem with Chronicler Adelyn. I'll show you some stuff in this video, but honestly, how good is she? How good she is something that has been designed for something that's not even in the game yet. She is designed for the new Sand Devil, whatever that's going to be. Now, obviously enough, probably destroying max HP and sleep and all of that is still going to be key. But until we see that new version of Sand Devil, it can tell you how good she is right now, but how good will she be in the future? I don't know. So, for instance, I wouldn't say she's not great right now. I wouldn't say just feed her, great 5-star chicken. Like, no way. She could end up being fantastic when that change comes in, but we have to wait for that change to be sure. Yeah, let's take a little look at her. Probably the biggest problem I have with her, especially right now, she's actually, I'll show you a couple of teams. She's actually kind of okay right now. However, is it worth all the books? Because you need at least these first 2 booked on her. You could probably get away with just those first 2, but you need to have the 100% chance to put sleep. And then you really quite want the 100% chance for the other debuffs as well. You really, really want that. If she does not have a 100% chance to sleep, there's not really any point in running her in Sand Devil. So you kind of need to invest books into her. And I'm not really sure at all, in fact, if that's worth it, especially for a new player, early mid-game players, that's what they're targeting. I don't actually think it makes a ton of sense. Let me show you how I built her anyway, and we'll see. So we're going to try a couple of builds. I'm going to need to rebuild her to try her in the stage 25 team. I've basically put her in a bunch of perception, which is what you get from the chase as well. She happens to have 1 piece of supersonic, an accessory. I put her in pretty decent gear. She doesn't need the gear this good, but I've put her in high speed to match Muck Stalker. We're going to talk about that. You need, obviously, high accuracy. This is enough for stage 25, so it's overkill. This is actually another piece of advice I could give you. We could look at the Hell Hades raid stages tool. Okay, and we could search this. So I think, for example, we're going to be looking at stage 12 as early to mid game. So for that, you actually need much less accuracy, right? 275. And then you want to be faster than the boss. He's only 205. So you can really drop the stats a lot. For her masteries, I do think that, in my opinion, the three really important masteries are number one, Harvest Despair. Whenever you place a sleep, you got a chance to place Leech. I'd put that with Sniper to up the chance of the Leech. The rest of her stuff's going to be 100% anyway when it's booked. This ups the chance for Leech. Master Hexer is nice. And then more accuracy. We've kind of given her stuff for more accuracy. But I'd say this is the important one. Harvest Despair with Sniper for basically more debuffs for the Sand Devil. That's what we're looking for. So what I want to look at is an early to mid game archetype of a team. We're going to be outgearing the team. It doesn't really matter. This is the rough gist. It's very simple. You've got a champion to put the boss to sleep. Then we've got someone to debuff the boss. Maybe someone else to debuff the boss. And then just stuff to do damage. You can really switch this out for anything. I put in, like, obviously Arbiter and Lydia. Takes a while to get them, but you could totally replace Lydia with a Stag Knight or what. It doesn't matter, right? It's just the concept of the thing. Arbiter buffs increase attack. We get the burn from Skrank. You could use a Mordecai. Doesn't matter. Rathalos Blademaster will do most of the damage. So this is it in with Muckstalker. And this is the thing. Muckstalker is a rare champion. In fact, we'll leave it on auto. We want to see the timing. Muckstalker has a 2-turn sleep. So he goes in. He actually does sleep for 2 turns, which is huge. I still don't think there's another champ in the game that does 2-turn sleep, which makes him kind of ideal because, like, right here, the boss can take a turn. He still has pips on his bar. So he's actually sleeping through a whole extra turn, which is buying us some time, which is pretty cool. That's a unique thing that Muckstalker can do that makes him really worthwhile. The boss absolutely smashes us because it's level 12. We survive, and he could put him back with the boss asleep anyway, but he could have put him back asleep. And that's sort of the gist of how it goes. This is looking to be a pretty quick run here. This is one of the better ones where stuff lined up well. The way it might not line up well, I do have Relentless on Skrank, and we've got War Master on several of these champions, which can really slow it down. But look, that gives you a rough concept of a team. It's pretty simple. Again, I would check the Hell Hades Optimizer to see the builds for teams with champions on your account. This is like a rough concept of probably, I don't know, more of a mid-game team, honestly. I don't think Sand Devil is something you do early game. More of a mid-game team. And yeah, that's how it works. Like I said, Muckstalker, if we come look at him, he is great because he's a rare. You can farm him from campaign, so it's really easy to upgrade his stuff. He has a 2-turn cooldown, 2-turn sleep. Great. It's 100% even. It's a 3-turn, 100% sleep, even unbooked. Fantastic. He does other stuff, which is totally irrelevant. We just want him for the sleep. So he's a brilliant budget option for sleep. How does Adelyn compare? Let's find out, right? Let's find out how Adelyn compares. So let's dive in to the same place. And yeah, here's the thing. So let me also make this clear as well. Over here. So this is the thing, right? The boss decreases the damage he takes from enemy skills by 25% stages 1 to 5. They're so easy, it doesn't really matter. 50% stages 6 to 15, and 75% stages 16 to 25. This is what Adelyn does do well. This damage reduction is reduced by 10% for every debuff he's currently under. So for instance, we're on stage 12 right now, 50%. We want 5 debuffs on the boss to get the maximum damage reduction. That is what Adelyn does better than other sleep champions, because she comes in and her sleep brings decreased attack and decreased speed as well. So she comes in and she's actually done a leech too. So now we've got absolutely tons of debuffs and we're hitting a heck of a lot harder, right? A heck of a lot harder. I mean, specifically, really, she's bringing 2 extra debuffs. In this case, we're actually overkill even. We're fully ignoring his damage reduction. So, I mean, yes, she's basically going to be better. She also brings you some healing, which I feel is probably not crazy relevant at this point, but it's something that could be relevant eventually. Let's see. So she should be able to put the boss back to sleep. There we go. Unfortunately, it's slightly desynced right there, and Lydia did her debuffs after. But because she's putting out so many debuffs, we kill him anyway, and we did it a bit faster. For my testing, this is actually a good bit faster. Maybe we got a little unlucky there. I don't know. But yeah, I found compared to Muckstalker, She is better. She's better. But is it worth all those legendary books? Oh, I'm not sure about that one. I'm not sure if it's worth all of those legendaries. It's a whole lot of legendary books. So yeah, for now, I really can't recommend it, unfortunately, for this sort of thing. I think you can do the same thing with Muckstalker and honestly be totally fine. So why bother, really? You can see this run is going to be a decent chunk faster. There we go. She's put him back to sleep. I'm not sure why it's synced up differently here. It's probably masteries and stuff, rocking differently. But yeah, like bam, that's a nice smooth run. She's great. The other thing she does, I haven't even mentioned it yet, but of course, this also helps a lot as well, is that her passive. Her passive's not bad. Allies do 3% more damage to targets for each debuff placed on them by this champion. So you're going to get the sleep. That might give you an extra 3%. If the boss is still asleep, though he does wake up fairly quick. You get 3% for each of these. You get 3% for the leech. So, you know, you're looking at fairly reliably like 9% extra damage for your team with her, which is quite good for Sand Devil. So I really do think that she is likely to have pretty good potential for people when we see the new version of the boss. I think she's even pretty decent right now. Like if you're later in the game, you got lots of legendary books to spare. I guess you could be pretty far in the game for that. But if you do, yeah, she might be pretty good for Sand Devil. She's one of the better sleep champions. Certainly. But is she necessary? Probably not. Probably not. But, you know, she's good. This is pretty nice. And again, it does synergize really well with that mastery. Let me show you a couple other things. So, the first thing I want to show you, over here. This is YST's team. I believe YST is going to be publishing his own video of her. This is sick, though. For a late game team, it's not super budget, right? But, you know, it as a concept for a team, it's more budget than my team. It's more budget than mine. This is 18 turns, like 30-second clear of Sand Devil stage 25 with Adelyn in there, which is sick. How does it work? Well, pretty simple. I think Kymar can attempt to sleep first, then Adelyn debuffs. Adelyn puts the boss to sleep and debuffs. Riho puts a ton of debuffs on as well. Newt nukes the boss. You reset with Kymar. The boss wakes up but misses his turn. Riho heals up. Newt goes again and nukes. Bam, the boss kills your team. Godseeker is sat in Stone Skin. The Godseeker passive revives Riho. Her active revives Newt. And that resets Newt's skills. And I think then probably you have Riho debuff again. And then Newt nukes again. So you basically get 3 Newt nukes on top of like the Riho debuffs. Newt's damage can be boosted up somewhat by Adelyn. And that's sort of the concept of how it works. Again, check out YST's video. He's going to be putting that out, and he'll break down this team. I don't have a Riho, so I can't build this exact team. But that's a pretty cool concept for a team, right? And she's nice for that. I don't know if she's essential. We'll watch his video and we'll find out. But I thought that was interesting. So there you go. Check out YST. He has a cool late game team for her. I did briefly try it with mine, and this is a funny thing where it didn't work. And let me show you here. So, it doesn't work in a weird way. So this is the team I use right now. I use Siphi. Siphi, I think, is better. Why? Because Siphi, remember, you need to sleep the boss to debuff him. And this might change, maybe, when they change the boss. You need to put him to sleep. Every sleep champion in the game, or every debuff, unless stated otherwise in the game, always will have, no matter how much accuracy you have, it caps out at 97% success, right? Again, like if you've got 0 accuracy, you know, your chances, it depends what their resistance is, of course, but as you add more accuracy, you know, your chance to debuff goes up, but it caps out at 97. There will always be a 3% chance to fail. However, Siphi has a sleep that cannot be resisted, so Siphi is 100%, which means if we use Adelyn, if we use any other sleep champion in the game, there is always a 3% chance that they fail. It's something I think is actually kind of nice with this team. If you've got the luxury of running Kymar in Affinity Breaker, because, again, it's Force Affinity boss, he'd weak hit, 35% of the time, which is pretty bad. He can't place the debuff. Affinity Breaker helps with that. You've got Kymar as a chance to sleep. With YST's team and Adelyn, you've got 2 good chances. That helps to mitigate. With this one, though, like, Siphi literally cannot fail. It literally works every single time. And this run obviously doesn't take this long. We debuff with her. We newt we newt with the nukes. We nuke with the newts. We newt all over him. And yeah, then the boss will die. We reset with Yumiko, CP turn meter boosts and whatnot. And there we go. So I found this funny because you might think, oh, maybe it fails because Sifi boosts us up on her second turn. What is so funny about this, we're going to switch the gear on her, and I'm going to see if I can make it work, but I'm not certain that it will, but let's try it. If we put in Adelyn instead, hilariously, what happens, right? Because she's a different speed from Sifi, she puts the boss to sleep, and yeah, then the boss doesn't wake up, he gets woke up, and then he kills us. What is happening here? This might be deceptive. So this is a weird quirk with speed, right? Sifi has not... Remember, at the point... What happened with the Sifi team is the boss woke up naturally from his sleep. He took his turn before the newts went. So the newts could nuke, and it didn't matter. And then we reset, and we went again before he got another turn. But he took his turn early. Sifi is not doing increased speed. There's no turn meter boosting. The decreased speed champion is placing decreased speed at almost the same time, like, because they're almost speed tuned. I think it is because, yeah, it's just tricky. I think we'd have to make her maybe even slower. I think it's what we'd have to do. It's a little bit awkward. Because Adelyn puts the decreased speed slightly earlier, it's slowing the boss down enough that the newts get to go. So we'd have to slow down the newts. It's actually quite tricky to build this. I'm not entirely sure how to make it work. Speed tuning is a funny thing. So yeah, because of her decreased speed happening that tiny bit earlier, it's not quite working. So we have to change her speed. So let's do it. We might have to tweak this quite a lot, perhaps. I had her at this speed because it was comparable to Muckstalker. Muckstalker was like 275. We had her in at like 281, so basically the same. But we need to drop it down at this point. So Ruella is also really quick. We might have to actually drop Ruella's speed. She's to 280. I mean, this gets awkward. So let me come back to you in a few minutes after I've tweaked it. We'll see. She's 281, which is what? She's 281, so she's one faster than Ruella. We, I think, need to change just everything. So I don't know. I'm very confused as how this happens. How does one extra speed, putting the decreased speed, make us faster than the boss? I'm not sure. Let's drop their speed slightly and let's see. All right, guys, there we go. After much tinkering, we got it working. It took a little bit, but it worked. It works. So, like 12 turns. And again, this is interesting. I think you could use, I believe, any reset champion. Now, it needs to be enough of a reset to reset the newts. That's the problem. So, Yumiko, Kaimar, or Crixia. However, Adelyn does genuinely work really well here, as well as Sifi, but you need very specific speed tune. I had to re-gear Adelyn, Ruella, and both newts. We had to change all of them to make this work, which is hilarious. But what we basically had to do, because we get, for whatever reason, that decreased speed just going on a little bit earlier, was making the newts go too quick. So as you can see now, it's fixed. What did we do to fix it? We re-geared. Remember, the boss is 270 speed on stage 25. So we re-geared Adelyn to be, as you can see, like, we're really solid on damage at this point. We had to re-gear Adelyn to be just over 270. Ruella needs to be just over 270 as well. I think Ruella is like 271. Adelyn's like 273 or 4. Yumiko, she's fast. Ooh, an ancient shard, doesn't matter. We had to lower both of the newts down. I think they're all both about 247 right now. I'll show you. In fact, let me show you the exact speeds. This is what we had to do. Whereas before it was totally different. Yeah, 248, 247. Yumiko is 37. Oh, she's actually missing gear. My Yumiko on live is actually much different. 273 on Adelyn. Actually, 261 on Ruella. Ruella is kind of slower. That's because the decreased speed from her is so strong, apparently, that Ruella will still outspeed a 270 speed boss, even if a 273 debuff for decreased speed went on him, which is kind of nuts. So that's what I've done to make it work. This stuff is all quite difficult, quite tedious. I would advise, again, using the Hell Hades optimizer would be the ideal thing. And you can see we actually did place the leech with her, but because we take a turn straight away, or the boss, excuse me, takes a turn straight away. The leech from the mastery is only 1 turn, so you would need Master Hexer to proc. So it's not a reliable thing for this team. Because the boss takes a turn and outruns the leech. But as you can see, the damage increase from her makes it quite a bit easier to get maximum damage or closer to max damage on the newts. So that actually works pretty darn well. Obviously, with this team, you need a proper reset champion, and you need 2 newts. We're quite a bit ahead of the damage. You might be able to do this with like a newt and a Charizia. Wallmaster Atharion is a double hit max HP, but sadly he's the wrong affinity. I don't think a single hit max HP like Cold Heart would do enough. So yeah, you're somewhat limited on options there. I do think Marius, the new mission guy, he could come in. You could probably do it with Marius and Newt. And you'd have to do a specific speed tune, but you could do it like the Newts. Marius about 250. I mean, you could do Marius about 250 speed or lower, 248 speed and Stone Skin. That might work pretty well for Arena as well against Mythicals and stuff. I don't know, but something to bear in mind. But look, that is a team. It does work. So Adelyn, she has potential. We could use other speed champions here, but she has a big advantage, I do think, over other speed champions, which is specifically that she brings you these 2 extra debuffs. We have the decreased speed from Ruella. She's decreased defense, weaken, decreased speed. We don't have decreased attack. So it's 1 extra debuff. That's knocking 10% damage reduction off the boss. And then she's giving us, realistically, probably 6% more damage. Ooh, Ruella maybe could overwrite it. Ruella could overwrite if she had a longer decreased speed. So you'd want to be careful with that. You'd have to have Ruella not run Master Hexer because she could put a 3-turn decreased speed, which would overwrite Adelyn. But you could do maybe a similar... You can do similar types of things with Ramantu as well. You can use Ramantu for this. Ramantu does decreased defense, weaken, decreased speed, block buffs. He works as well. And it probably should fit in just fine, actually. My Ramantu is probably the wrong speed, but let's double check. Double check. I think Ramantu fits in just fine if you don't have Ruella, though I think Ruella is perfect because it leaves you more flexible with your Ramantu build. So there we go. Yeah, we've got an extra hit in. You can absolutely use Ramantu. You can use a 4-hitter and you're good. You just cannot do more than that, or the boss will wake up, right? You could even do a single You could do a single hit, even extra on top of it. So yeah, that's basically Ramantu would totally work instead of Ruella. It would even give you another buff. Yeah, I think Chronicler Adelyn fits in pretty well. The other sleep champions don't have that. They don't have debuffs. They don't have a passive that ups your damage. So yeah, she genuinely does that really well. Now, of course, the rest of her kit, like her healing and restoring destroyed max HP, doesn't matter here. But I do think she has. Yeah, between that team and YST's team, that is enough for me to say that this champion is not totally useless. She does have a niche use. Personally, I would use Sifi instead because Sifi is 100%. Chronicler Adelyn is 97% because of just how accuracy works. Sifi's 100%. So I'd rather use the Sifi. I think Sifi's kind of broken for the boss. But again, all this might change. So look, there you go, guys. That's my thoughts on her. I think right now, she does have potential for, I'd say, funny enough, I wouldn't say it's early mid-game. I'd say it's more end-game players that have a surplus of legendary books and the desire to farm Sand Devil. I think for those types of players, and who have the champions to make high-level teams work. Because, I mean, you need to have some pretty crazy champions and some really good gear to make these Sand Devil teams work for high levels. I think for endgame players, she's actually okay. She has a potential slot into your teams. Like, if you don't have a Sifi, she's probably the next best option. Probably is. That's pretty good for doing a speed run. So, that's not bad. Okay, that's cool. But for early and mid-game players, like, I just don't see it. And I really think it's the Bivol problem. She's going to be probably more useful when they change the boss. But they haven't changed it yet. So we'll revisit her. When they change the boss, we'll revisit. I will say, unlike Bivol was a fusion. So to get Bivol, it took a bit of work, right? With her, you just got to log in. So it's not costing you anything. And getting her soul isn't costing you anything. It's all very easy. And the soul's going to make it easy to gear her up as well. I didn't have a soul on her here. But like even just the accuracy stats at 5 stars, pretty big. But yeah, look, I don't think she's particularly amazing anywhere else. She'd probably be decent against some bosses. You know, decrease attack, decrease speed, some healing, upping your damage, transferring some debuffs. I think it's accuracy in all battles. So yeah, she's gonna be fine for progressing against lots of bosses in the game. Sure. She won't be in any end game teams apart from Sand Devil, but she's got some potential. Look, I think we showed it all. That's Adelyn. That's Chronicler Adelyn. Yep, that's what I think about her. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see y'all next time. Goodbye.